a new rise.
If somebody lift those hands and say,
It's a new rise.
I need you to speak it over your own life
It's a
tonight.
new rise.
It's a new rise.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Propel Deep Dive. I'm Megan DiMartino, and I am thrilled to have you here today with me and my very special guest today, Brian Boyle. And as I was watching that intro, and of course I've watched it thousands of times probably, I was so reflecting upon the TEDx talk that I did last week. And today I have the pleasure of introducing to you my coach. But before we go there, I'd like to share with you just a little bit about what the Propel Deep Dive is and a little bit about the Propel program and the community. Propel is the deep dive is where you will hear my guest's story of information from their heart about who they are and their dreams and their goals and their aspirations, and from a young person to where they are today, because we're all evolving and we will never stop. But what brought them to today? But most importantly, with that, I want you to see yourself in it. That it doesn't matter that Brian is an academic and also a TEDx a coach, no, and a speaker himself, and he's a newscaster. No, it doesn't matter about that. It's about how he got there, that journey. Because that journey is not a straight line. It is full of turns and twists and divots, and that you just need that clarity at that first C of the 5 C's of the Propel program. So I put together a program 4 years ago to help you start, scale, and sustain the business and life of your dreams. And then from there, the Propel community evolved. And it's no charge, just join us. The information will be on the stream of how to go there and join us. You receive a nugget of inspiration from me every morning and a newsletter and blog every week. And then, of course, notifications about the Propel Deep Dive. Yes, it's tonight type thing. But you'll also have the archive of all of the past deep dives, all of them. You can go back and see who has been on and listen at your leisure. So Brian will be there, and he will be on live on my YouTube page. So that is the last ask I'm going to share with you, is that do go to YouTube, and it will be live there. Or is live there, but also you can go back and listen to it, but do subscribe, because it truly does help others to find us and all of these amazing people that I have each week with me. So I really ask you to do that, to go back to the, if you have left, do go back to the Megan DiMartino Propel YouTube page and subscribe. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you my very special guest this week, and everyone's special, but my very special guest this week, Brian Boyle.
Hi, Megan.
Hello, Brian. So good to have you here with me today. So excited to have you here, really.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very pleased to be here.
It's a very, everyone is special, as I said, and I invite everyone. And so I curate that and handpick people, and basically knowing that, as I shared with you, that everyone has a story, and that's what TED is about, the TEDx. And with that, to share their stories with our guests. And that's how I look at our friends here tonight that are our guests, listening to your story and you and I chatting together. So why don't you go back to, and by the way, I said a few little snippets there in the intro of the deep dive, but that you are an academic and a few other things you do. But you're also in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And I had Samira Douab with us a couple of months ago. She's from Paris. So meaning I used to call this back in the day when I had my first iteration of this called Unique Leaders Live and Podcast, when I started it in 2004, 2020. During the pandemic, I needed to do something creative, right, Brian? And I used to call it Unique Leaders Live. And because everybody was home. It was easy to get people. Everybody was home, and so have people come on. So, but I dropped that global piece. But I do have a lot of friends and colleagues all over the world, which is very exciting. So Brian, my friend in Northern Ireland, tell us a little bit about young Brian, and a little bit about where you grew up, and your dreams, and what has sparked you to where you are today.
Okay, so I grew up in, as you said, I grew up in County Antrim in Northern Ireland, and I'm one of a family of 5. I'm the second youngest. My very traditional family. My dad was a builder. My mum was a housewife. One thing I would say that maybe set our family apart at the time was that my mother was a huge advocate of education. My father saw his job very much the traditional male role. He went out and worked, brought the money in, and my mum looked after us. But she always drove home the point: you have to do well at school. It really wasn't an option. It was something that she expected from us, and every night homework was prioritized, and it was always looking to that next stage after the stage you were in. So I grew up in an environment where I had siblings who performed academically very well, some of them extremely well. And this was a problem for me because I didn't quite show the same academic flair that they did. So I was somewhat behind them in terms of my academic ability. They all, at 16, you have the options to leave school in the UK and Ireland and go and start working. Most people who can go on to what we call A levels, which prepares you for university. I didn't go that far. I left school at 16 and got a job. And so I didn't get a university degree in my 20s. That would come much later on. Okay. So I spent a fair bit of my life feeling like I was a little bit on the back foot because they were soaring ahead. Like my eldest brother is a vet. My sister's a business mentor. My brother, he now lives in Australia. He started a couple of gyms. So he's in the fitness industry. And I just had a job, and I was working locally and stayed at home. Everybody else left. Even my younger brother left. I'm the only one still left in Ireland. And I think I carried that around for quite a long time, that I wasn't doing as well as they were. And I was in this sort of comparison game with them, where I was comparing my life to theirs all the time. And so at a stage, and I think it was around about the time I was around 30, and I had just started my own family at that stage, that I decided something needed to change. And I started to return to when I grew up, while we focused on education, there was no room for fancy ideas or daydreaming. It was my mother was very much a practical woman, and remember, I grew up during the Troubles, when Northern Ireland wasn't a place of great opportunity. Right. And you did
Stop for a minute. Now, most of our listeners, certainly right now, you will share this out, and our TED family will, and different things of that nature. But a lot of people, especially your age, I do remember very clearly, but share just a little bit about that. Don't go heavily, but share a little bit about that, because I wanted to ask you that. Did that affect your mother and father? And then, of course, her position of where she was coming from.
Yeah, very much so it did. Because you have to understand that the mindset at the time was that was never going to end. That was an entrenched war. That was the way that was viewed by society. And it's a polarized society. It was Catholic on one side, Protestant on the other, British versus Irish, and it was dangerous. You know, so when I got to an age where I started going out socializing, like my parents were genuinely fearful about some of the places I was going to. They may be attacked. So it also crept into career choices and job opportunities, because there were some places that only employed Catholics. There were some places that only employed Protestants. So choices were limited, options were limited. And my parents had quite a closed mindset about this. Their answer to that was, all the opportunities are out of Ireland and they're somewhere else.
I
So
see.
they encouraged us to go overseas for education, and nearly all of us got educated in Scotland.
I see.
Okay?
I see. Yes.
And my siblings decided to stay, and there's 3 of them now live in England, and I came back home again, and I was happy to come back home again. But there was always this is never going to get better.
Yes.
But I left school in 1994.
Okay.
And the Good Friday Agreement was signed in 1998.
Okay.
So Northern Ireland started to look very different after that. Okay, the main hostilities slowed down, and things weren't as bad as they were, and society opened up a bit.
Right.
So
Yes.
I didn't see the need to leave. So I stayed. Okay, but still, the mindset, the hangover from the Troubles would be, you stay in your lane. You're not a daydreamer. You do the job that's in front of you. You do the job your father did. You did what everybody else does. Okay. So this is in the days before coaching was even a thing, Meg.
Oh, yes. No.
You know what I mean? Personal development, that was an American thing. Personal
But
development.
even so, it was not I mean, yes, Tony Robbins by 94 had his, first, big launch.
Programs.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it really was just beginning. It was really a very small population. So keep going.
Yeah. So for me to tell my parents that I wanted to be a professional speaker, or I wanted to coach people and tell them how to live their life coaching, and they would have literally laughed at me.
Sure.
And my mother had this way of that. If she heard something that she thought was nonsense, she would forensically question you on it. And be like, well, how are you going to make money at that?
Right.
And what are you going to do if this happens?
Right.
And what are you going to do? You're going to leave here and move to America? Or are you going to move somewhere else? She had this way of, and basically your dreams were picked apart.
Well, you know what that is? It's fear-based.
Basically, yeah. So she was worried, but it came from a very genuine place of concern. Absolutely. And she wanted us to be safe. And to her, the most important thing was that you made next month's rent. Okay. So if you get a job, you have a stable income, that's safe.
Yes.
Because remember, she grew up in a society that wasn't safe.
Yes. Yes.
So I can understand her being like that. But in the early days of my dreams and aspirations, she ruthlessly pulled them to pieces. So quite a part of my life after that, from my teens through my 20s up into my early 30s, was spent basically getting back in touch with that. I was out from her influence. I didn't live with them anymore. And I wasn't really content with the career I had. And I knew that there was something else in me, because I'd always had this feeling as a child, Megan, right? And I can't explain where it came from, but I had this thing that I should always be in front of people. And that's all I knew. I had this feeling that I should be in front, and I had no idea what version of that would happen, what way it would look. So I didn't know whether I was going to be an actor, or I was going to be some sort of, I knew I didn't want to be a priest or anything. I didn't want to be up in front of that kind of congregation. That didn't suit me. Right. But I didn't know. And I think one of my earliest experiences was, and this is maybe quite a silly one, but I got a job in a bar. And you're very much in front of people in a bar. And that environment was very comfortable to me. I liked that. So that stayed with me. And then as I got into my 30s, I decided to start, maybe I should start exploring this. Because people were telling me things. There were people saying things to me. Like, you explain things well. Or you're a really good speaker. Or I can understand you really easily.
Yes.
And to me, they were throwaway comments that I didn't take seriously. But that was people telling me what they saw in me. And it took me a while to listen, but I did eventually listen. And then I started testing it. So I knew that when I went for job interviews, I usually did well. Like I got almost all the jobs I ever applied for. And then I joined a Toastmasters. And the feedback from that was really good. And I started to think, well, maybe I've got something here. And as you know, confidence is built on successful events in a row. So the more evidence you get that something works, the more courage you build to try something else.
That's it.
So I started to take bigger and bigger risks. And one of the biggest one I took was I decided I wanted to be a radio presenter. Now, I didn't have a day of broadcast experience, and I was never a DJ. I never worked in a nightclub doing music. So for me to walk in the door of a radio station and say, can I have a job as a radio presenter, was so far removed from what my day-to-day life was like that it seemed obscene to me, never mind to the people who I'd be speaking to.
Right.
But this is what I did one day.
Or your mother. Or your mother.
Yeah, I had to completely block her out of my head completely. Right? Yeah. So I walked in the door of the station and I was met by the receptionist who said, how can I help you? And I said, I'd like to be a presenter. And she looked at me and immediately I could tell this is not how this is done. So she said, let me get somebody. So this guy comes out to me and he goes, yeah, how can I help you? And I said, I'd like to be a presenter. And what followed is the worst interview I ever had in my life, because he asked me a series of questions. He said, are you a presenter at the minute? No. Are you a DJ? No. Do you MC events? No. And then the worst question was, what do you do? And I said, I work for the golf club in the town. And he was like, right, okay. And he's looking at me now like I'm a chancer. Okay, waste of time. And he said, what we normally do is we normally need a demo tape of some kind. Can you get me one of them? And I said, yeah, no problem. So I left the station with my tail tucked between my legs. And I went home and tried to burn a CD as it was at the time. Okay. So I had a laptop at home, never done this before, threw something together and then posted it off to them. Didn't hear anything for 2 weeks. And then I rang him up and I said, did you ever get that CD I sent? And he said, yeah, I did. And I said, what did you think? And he said it was blank. And I thought, oh God, I sent him a blank CD. So, and at this point, I'm crashing. I'm just like, right, look, I'm sorry for wasting your time. It was a bad idea, and I'm backing out as quickly as I can. And then something happened. He said to me, tell you what, why don't you come into the station and we'll record one here? So I landed in a couple of days later and he put me behind a microphone and he said, there's a script for an advert that we're running. Read that. So I read it and he plays it back and he goes, okay, so I'm going to play you an advert now. And I want you to read that the way you hear this. So I do that for him. He listens back to it a couple of times, leans back in his chair and he goes, yeah, you've got a really good voice. So he said, here's what we'll do. Why don't you come in Tuesday night and you sit in on our Ocean, the station was Ocean FM, sit in on our Ocean Energy show with Kieran, and he'll show you how to drive the desk. And I said, great. And 3 weeks later, I was hosting a radio show myself.
It's like, my talk and as you're speaking, I mean, there's so many similarities, right? I'm sure you related to a lot of me. And I was thinking when you said about that divine intervention, right? When I moved from New York to Texas, but to be with sophisticated chemists, right?
Yeah.
People, those mentors and people that are, experts in their field. And so that's what happened with you and this man, that divine intervention. He could have said no, and that's the end of that.
Yeah.
But he did not. He did not. Wow.
Yeah.
And those moments happen, guys. Those moments happen, but you have to keep going. Keep going.
Yeah.
So
the crucial point I want to make there about that story is you have to make it happen.
mm-hmm.
I sat in the car for about 30 minutes before going into that station, trying to talk myself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the usual thing. Nobody wants to hear you on the radio. This isn't what you do. Stay in your lane. You're not made for this. These are the type of things I was telling myself.
Sure.
And there's just a voice just went, you know what? I'm just going to do it. What's the worst that can happen? I'm going to be embarrassed for 5 minutes.
Right.
I'll get over that. And the only people who are going to know are going to be the two people who are in that station.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? When you start to examine it from outside your own fear, your own box of fear, you start to look at it and go, you know what? It's not actually that bad.
Right.
And if you approach more of your life in that fashion, you'll do a lot more and you'll try a lot more. But if I hadn't taken that shot, I wouldn't have had 2 years on the radio.
Wow.
That really gave me a level of confidence to step up to just about anything after that. Because I always said to myself, you know what, Brian, if you can get on the radio, you can do anything.
Right. Yes.
You know? And to have that behind you, to have that inner belief really changes you on a deep level that you don't really understand till it happens to you. So from there, I decided, well, you know what? I don't like the career I have right now. And because I can be on the radio and I can host a show and I can talk, then I can teach. And I always liked teaching. I love helping people understand and solve problems and things. So I decided to completely change direction and I got into teaching, which I've been doing for the last 13 years now.
But you had to go back to school to do that.
Yeah, because remember at this point, I still didn't have a degree.
Right.
And in a classic case of overcompensation, I now have 3. So totally overboard. But again, it was to answer that question, you know, that it was to put to bed that idea that I wasn't as good as the rest of my family. And those problems are now all in the past with me. You know, I'm not comparing myself to them anymore.
Right. Yes.
I'm not listening to that voice in my head that says you can't or you shouldn't. The question now is, why not?
Exactly.
Why not?
Exactly.
Because everything you want is on the other side of the work you're not doing.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So if I wanted to be a TEDx coach, I had to start coaching at TEDx. And that's exactly what I did. I sought out the opportunity. And I put myself in front of the right people. And I contacted Uma. Uma didn't contact me. I went after Uma and I made a point of setting up a meeting with her to discuss that opportunity. And again, she was very open to the idea. But like you said, people seem to think that progress in life happens in a linear fashion. You know, you do school, you get a job, and then if you stay at that job, your seniority will give you more opportunities and you'll just move up the ladder. Very rarely is it as smooth and straightforward as that.
Never.
An awful lot of progress is actually regressive before it's progressive. You have to take 2 steps back to take 1 step forward.
Yes. Yes.
Isn't
But you
that
know,
the case?
the other piece to that, though, Brian, and this the question to you is that have you learned, or let me ask it this way: do you look at the steps back as steps back anymore, or just being prepared to leap over, so to speak? Meaning, we perceive that they're 2 steps back, but often they're preparing you for a different direction. Are you now able to look at things that way? That meaning that mistakes propel you. They're not, but then that's just a word, a mistake. Meaning, so how do you label that quote unquote mistake, so to speak? You know?
Yeah. And hindsight's 2020. At the time it's happening to you, it feels like a setback.
Sure.
But when you look back on it, you say to yourself, well, I had to go there to get here. And an awful lot of life is like that.
Yes,
and an awful lot of life is taking a shot in the dark at something you've no idea whether it's going to work out. But I would rather have the regret of trying than the
Mhm.
regret of not trying.
That's a very, very important point. Say that again, please.
I'd rather have the regret of trying than the regret of not trying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I think at the end of my life, I want to say to myself, I gave this everything I had.
Mhm.
I did
Mhm.
not live scared. I did not play small. I wasn't a side character in my own life. I was
Mhm.
the main character. I
Mhm.
did the thing that you see the characters in the movies do and you admire them for it. I
Mhm.
want to be that person to
Mhm.
myself. I don't really
Mhm.
care about what anybody else thinks,
Mhm.
but I
Mhm.
want to know at the end of it that that's the life I lived.
Mhm. Amen. It's like, yes, to have that life fulfilled. It's not about things. It's about the journey and your passion and purpose. It truly is.
Yeah.
So now you are still in academics and teaching with your 3 degrees, the overachiever, Brian
Yeah.
Boyle, and you're married, your dad, and so you have a family, and you now are a TEDx coach. And you, like you said, you love people and love helping people and teaching and training. So the perfect next step for Brian is really to help others. I'm asking others to, like you did with me, but we met together through the TEDx South Lake. We
Yeah.
met through them versus creating a business to help others prepare for the proper TEDx stage, because they're all over the world.
Yeah.
They truly. And so, we worked on a Zoom every week. So it didn't matter that I was in Texas and you were in Northern Ireland, but you can work with people all over the world. So, so this is what your next step is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to share what I've learned about what works in influencing people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, I've spent 13 years teaching. I run a public speaking program in the college that I work for as well. And I get an immense sense of satisfaction from seeing somebody who would be scared to get up to give a 2-minute introduction about themselves to
Mm-hmm.
going and delivering a 15 to 20-minute presentation on something that they're really passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's the growth that you see from public speaking as a skill. It is
Mm-hmm.
immense. And it's not just the effect in the person themselves, but it's the effect in their circle around them.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen employees who I've helped who have been invisible. And after they've worked with me, they have moved up through their career. They're involved in projects. They're giving their opinions. They're speaking up in meetings. They're talking to people they never spoke to before, simply because we unlocked something that was lying there. It was lying there just quiet. It was just waiting for
Mm-hmm.
the confidence to come with it, for it to
Mm-hmm.
be expressed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've met an awful lot of people who were 10 out of 10 technically, brilliant at their job, but couldn't communicate it properly. Therefore, they were viewed as a 2 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Mm-hmm.
So if you can communicate your skill, your ability, and if you are able to influence other people, then people will pay you for that ability, because that's needed in the world today.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether you're educating or whether you're selling or whether you're trying to get funding or you're pitching an idea or you want to change society. None of that matters. What matters is, do people buy into what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a learnable skill.
It is. It
Very,
is.
very learnable. Okay. And there are people who may be used to a certain type of speaking, and that's the only type of speaking they know, and they're very comfortable with it. When they're put on a different stage in front of a different audience, they have to learn a different way of speaking.
Oh,
And I think you had to go through that one, Megan, didn't you?
I did. I did.
Yeah.
I mean, it was extraordinary because I am an educator as well, meaning a communicator in the beauty, spa, wellness world. So as a trainer, an educator, a teacher, but I've done many keynotes as well. But you're on a stage and you're walking around and you have got PowerPoint and you're again, it's a glorified training from the smaller venue.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is.
Hmm.
So to be able to distill, and what you so aptly did was help me to understand that why, how, and what. But we had to get to know each other first for you to pull out the story, and the most salient points of the why, how, and what, which you do so brilliantly, is getting to know people.
Yeah.
And then helping craft that. But yes, very different. And then there's a time element. Most trainings, you could be with a group for an hour. You could be on stage in a keynote, 30, 45 minutes. This is 15 minutes or less, kids. And there's that clock counting down.
Yeah. And that adds an element of pressure that you're not normally under.
No,
You know,
not at all.
what I love most about training when I'm training TEDx speakers is you're asking the speaker to take a back seat. There's so many speaking opportunities where people get up and they think I'm the star of the show here. This is all about me.
Right.
You see TED and TEDx, you are merely the vessel. It is all about the idea. Where is the value in what you're saying? How are you going to change the people who are sitting in front of you? And it's not just them. It's the people who go on to watch it then on the TED website.
Right.
What sort of comments are you going to generate in the comments section? What are people going to think of what you're saying? Okay, yes, you do have to consider you and how you come across. Absolutely.
That is a piece.
It is a piece, yeah. But the big thing with TED is, what is the idea and how is this valuable?
Yes.
So
well, it's very clear that they, TED, not you, not I, not Uma from Southlake, but TED's structure is very structured. They know what they want. And that, like you said about you being you and coming across, well, yeah, you do, but you stand right in this little red circle. You don't walk around, you don't engage, when I walked out, I would say the most, and I've never done theater, I've never been an actress. I mean, I thought, oh, that would be fun back when I was a kid, but I've never done that. And so what was the most intimidating, maybe, thing about when I walked out on that stage, Brian, was, that's why I say it was like an out-of-body experience, because you couldn't see the audience because of the lights. It's like theater. You couldn't see them. And so, and what was interesting about my talk was because you knew that I am an engager. So I started with, hello, everyone. And so with that, they said hello back, even though I couldn't see them. Yeah. And it might have been 10 people of the 300, but I heard voices. And so that helped me kind of like, okay, I'm here with these people. Yeah. And not just like, oh my Lord. And with the clock, the digital clock on the balcony, because we were in a little theater, and it was a very different experience. It really was. So, but you helped understand TED, and that is what is so important, Brian, of what you're doing.
Yeah, because TED demands an awful lot from its speakers. It demands that you have a good idea, that it has value, and that you can say it succinctly. Okay, there's no room for waffle here.
No,
there's no room for you've room for probably 2 stories within that 15 minutes max. And you've got to convey them quickly, efficiently, and you've got to convince people. If you're out there to convince people of something, you've got a very, very small window of opportunity to get it done. So it really, really develops you as a speaker. And I noticed that because I coached you and I coached someone else as well. And I do believe that both of you are well improved speakers from before the experience. but you will also go on to have an impact in a different way. That when
Yes.
you go to speak at other events, you
Yes.
will stand out as a different speaker now
I feel that.
compared to
I feel
everybody
that.
else.
I know that, and I feel that. Yes, I will.
You
And
know?
I do very much so. It's been, and that people ask me, and it's been a week and a half, and people have asked me what. Well, they say, when can I hear the talk? Is what I hear often.
Yeah.
And I said, well, it's a process. They're editing it now, getting it ready to send it to TED. And so I don't know. It could be, I don't know. I really don't know. Well, how was it? I said it was an experience I have never experienced before. And, and these are people generally, Brian, that are speakers of some sort, or coaches or mentors, of all of the above. And so they're asking for from their own personal place. And so I speak to you guys just globally that you need a coach. You cannot do it alone. I don't know how a person could. I do not know, because if they do, they will not. They will not. It's not even being successful. That word isn't. It's not operative. They may be able to do something within 15 minutes, but it's not going to have any resonance. It's not. You have to. Have a coach.
Well, this is the benefit of a coach in anything. A
Truth.
coach accelerates your progress.
Yes.
Because they give you real-time feedback as to where you're doing things right and where you're doing things wrong, and adjust your trajectory to make sure you are successful. That's what any good coach should be doing in whatever field. And I don't care if that's sports or public speaking or anything else for that matter. Okay. So if you're doing it without a coach, you're risking quite a bit, because a TEDx is an amazing opportunity. And if you do it without help, you're squandering the opportunity, unless you are a very seasoned and very, very good speaker in your own right. And there's lots of people are.
I think that's true. I mean, I say think because I don't know 90% of, or maybe 95 of all the folks on YouTube, but there's a gal that I know that ironically did a TED in Cincinnati just this week, and she's a very seasoned speaker, and I'm anxious to see that difference, because having gone through it just a week ago, I'll be able to see that transformation from her general talk, which are great, but she does her field is coaching and training, Brian, but she started gaining a name for herself, I guess you'd say, by doing, and this goes back probably 2017, 18, maybe somewhere in there. She would do a live on Facebook every Friday night. She called it Friday Night Live. Very clever, but it went on for hours, and it was a training. But she's very engaging. She's very, she's lovely to look at. She's funny, but that's very different than a TED Talk.
Yeah. Absolutely, it is. And like I said, the other thing about TED Talk is they're hard to get.
Yes.
It's not an opportunity that just falls into your lap.
No.
You have to apply, and the application is rigorous, and you're up against stiff competition.
Yes. Say that's one of the things I do share, Brian. I say it's like a college thesis. Meaning, because I did try, my story, but I did, because you also have to find an organization, a TED organization that resonates with your topic. And and if not, it will not align. So I worked on finding different organizations, which I thought aligned, and I did fill out the application. And obviously I didn't do a good job, because two, I never heard from. One, I didn't, they said, thank you so much, but try again. And so that's when not you, but had some help crafting that application, because it's all important. Every step is important to the experience.
Yeah, because you're being put out to an enormous audience by TED. The real value in it for you, after you've given the talk, is the video goes up to what could potentially be and massive audience.
Yes.
And to squander that opportunity by saying, you know what, I'll do this myself is I think a risky move unless you have got really good credentials to back it up.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
What we did was 4 months worth of coaching. And essentially what that is, Megan, is behavior change. If you change how you talk, you change how you behave, and it takes time to change how someone behaves. Right? You don't change your behavior. You don't develop a new habit in 2 weeks.
No.
It takes several months of repeated behavior. And if you're doing it on your own, you're the one who has to keep an eye out for you regressing back to your old ways. That's where a coach comes in. When a coach sees you regressing, they stop it dead and tell you, hey, you're back to your volume's back to where it used to be. We need to get that back up. You're regressing back to your archetype. We need to remember in this part, we're talking in the coach archetype. We're not talking in the friend archetype.
Right.
You know, it's that steering. And you remember we did the exercise where we highlighted everything in the talk. We said a certain way.
Yes.
And then there was also the recording that I did for you of your own talk.
Powerful.
So that you could hear it. So that you could hear it and go, is that interesting? Now, is that really engaging me? Because if it's not engaging me, it's not engaging anybody else.
Right? No.
Do you know? And if you don't have, like, some people don't have a lot of, they don't have a big circle, a big network that they can bounce ideas off. Having a coach in that situation is almost essential.
Like for me, it was. Yes.
For your average everyday talk, it's maybe not that important. But when you're going for a big stage like TED, yeah, I think you need it.
It's imperative. It is. But all of that, yes. But the last day, the day before, I should say, we had a meeting again. And you could tell I was fretting. And you said something so key to me, because again, all of what you just said, we did, all of those months and the work and so forth, and we were prepared. But you could tell I was fretting. And you said, just be yourself. And if you inspire one person, you have accomplished. Now, that does not mean what you said from a marketing business position on their website and all that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the day standing there on that stage. And I really took that to heart, because you are, as my husband would say, Paul Tyler, you're straight vanilla. And that was his greatest compliment. Because he could trust that person. That person is straight vanilla. And I trusted that you did not say to me, well, Megan, I mean, you didn't exacerbate any anxiety that I had and so forth. You just squelched that and gave me the comfort zone to just be me, and you said, be yourself. And, and if you inspire one person, and I shared that story with you, but how that one woman, I mean, other people said great talk, blah, 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 whatever. I'm talking about post, because they had a meet and greet with the people that attended, because they were ticket holders. But this one woman came up to me and said, you inspired me so. Thank you so much. And she didn't have to do it. I mean, she sought me out. She wanted to tell me that, how I inspired her. And so I thought of Brian and said, there's that one person. Yeah. So I do not regret a moment of all these months, because it started for me in February when I started working on the application process. And I wasn't notified because, again, there was no guarantee with that application, but I was notified in July.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we had, from the very beginning, Megan, we had one eye on the audience at all times. And for you, I think you remember this discussion where we said that for what you were talking about, you were speaking to either a seasoned female entrepreneur who was going to do something in her business that needed done after she heard you speak, because you gave her the clarity and the confidence and the drive to make that change. Or you were going to speak to a young girl in the audience who was thinking of taking that shot.
Right.
Should I get a job, or should I start this big idea that I have? And after listening to you, they would decide to follow their heart and follow their dreams.
Yes. Yes.
So we crafted it that way.
That way. No, we did. That was the final, believe in your vision, trust your instincts, and know that the best time to start is now.
Yeah.
That's the last
and,
sentence.
and keeping in the whole spirit of what your podcast is about, the whole idea of your talk was to propel somebody in the audience forward.
Amen. That's all that's important to me now, Brian, honestly. For the next however years God has me doing all of this, that is my heart, is to help people understand. And that's why I love your story so very much, because again, back to our guests listening, is that it was a troubled time, just as it is right now. And today is election. Yesterday was well, this is pre-recorded, so I'm just going to say that because of the time difference and all that. But it's live tonight, and we will know maybe who the new president of the United States is. And with that time in Northern Ireland, like he said, I'm going to tie it back to you, my guest. Brian said that it was permeated in the environment that things would never change. And Northern Ireland is very different today than it was back then. Things did change. His life changed, and those steps have to be taken to have those changes happen. So things will not stay the same, but you said it earlier, you have to take those steps. Absolutely. And you showed clearly through this sharing today that you didn't just sit back and say, you didn't even share what those early jobs were. It doesn't matter. But you did say the bartender, but you said a restaurant or a bar. You said a bar. Yeah. I assumed if you're engaging with people, you were the bartender, which I love sitting at bars and talking to bartenders because they're cool. They're bright. They're smart. They're engaging. I enjoy that a lot personally all over the world. And I often travel solo. And so it's you learned your craft by doing.
Yeah.
And so that's truly what I want to share with each and every guest that I have, with our guests that are sitting with us in the audience, so to speak, that they don't have to stay in where they are. Just take that first step. The first step.
My favorite way to wrap up that sentiment is to say, don't be so attached to who you are in the present that you don't give the future version of you a chance.
Love that. I love that. Say that again.
Don't be so attached to who you are in the present that you don't give the future version of you a chance.
I love it. Love it. Love it.
Okay. Because it's all to play for. It's all to play for. And the only thing that's stopping you from getting what you want is a growth mindset.
Yes.
And a growth mindset is quite simply, I can do this, and there is a way to solve this problem. And every problem that has ever existed, somebody solved it. Seek out that person. Find them, talk to them, ask them how they did it. And you will find that 90% of those people will be happy to tell you how.
For sure. So on this stream, as you see here, Brian's information. There's two pieces there: his Instagram information and his website. His email. And so do reach out to Brian with any thought, idea, meaning question about coaching and the like. Well, so speak to that for a second of what you would like a person to reach out to you with and for.
Well, I offer one-to-one coaching for anybody who is looking to improve their communication game. I do coach at the TEDx level, but I also coach people who just get intimidated by it with the meeting with the boss. Okay. So whether you're just giving presentations in a boardroom, or whether you have to attend conferences, or you have to step in front of a classroom of people, or you just need to present to a group of customers to try and sell something or anything along those lines, I have a program that will help you improve that to some extent.
Wonderful.
Okay. So, and we can vary it, and it's very much geared at the individual. It's not an off the shelf. It's very much tailored, because one of the first things that I'll ask for from you is a recording of you speaking. And from that, we will start to build the speaker you can be from the speaker you are right now. And the longer the period of time we do it over, the more development and the more potential you will have. But that's not for everybody. There's some people need a short program. So if that's what you need,
Right.
that's what you'll get.
Okay, so tailor-made. So there is Brian, and you can be in New Jersey and call Brian in Ireland. It matters not. I'm in Texas. He is in Ireland. So matters not. So just reach out to this gem of a human, and you will not regret it 1 second. I'm a far better person having met Brian Boyle and working with Brian Boyle. So thank you so much, sir. Really
Thank you very much,
appreciate it.
Megan. Really
And
appreciate
thank you
it.
for being here today. And
No
we'll see
problem.
you soon.
All the best now. Bye-bye.
Be blessed. Wow. Well, I hope you enjoyed that inner glimpse of Brian Boyle, the coach, and also a little glimmer of my TEDx experience. So you'll hear more about that as the days and months go by, and it will be up on the TEDx platform sometime the end of this month, early December. I'll let you know. But now you've met and can go back and visit the individual that helped me craft that talk. So thank you guys so much for joining us on the Propel Deep Dive. I hope you enjoyed tonight as much as I did. And we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday on the Propel Deep Dive. But in the meantime, do sign up for the Propel community. You will not be sorry you did. I get texts all the time from people saying, did you know that I was going through XYZ? And it's uncanny how that happens. And I prepare those a week plus in advance. So it's really just that divine inspiration and that divine intervention. So know that it's there, and other things that are part of the Propel community, and amazing, exciting things that are coming up in 2025. So we'll see you next Wednesday on in the Propel Deep Dive. Be blessed.
Hello, peace. Hello, joy. Hello.